Okay, brilliant. So the meeting has started. Remember, you're on mute, Leanne. Welcome, everybody. We're just going to give everyone a few moments for people to filter in before we start today's session on kindness. I've been really looking forward to this, so I hope you have been as well. We'll have the chat function open, so feel free to ask any questions, but we'll get started in just a moment. You can see I've got a lovely view behind. We're currently in Bluestone in West Wales at the moment. So that's why you can see that beautiful view behind me. So welcome everybody that has been just joining in. We're just going to wait just a little bit longer just for people to keep coming in, and then we're going to get started with today's session. Okay, give me a nod, Leanne. I think we get started, shall we? Wonderful. So good afternoon and welcome everybody. Thank you for coming along today's session on kindness. It's a part of our People series, Lunch and Learn sessions. But before I hand over to Leanne and get started, just a few things. So this session is recorded and will go out afterwards as well. So if you would like to share this session with your team, a nice kind act, I might add, then you'll be able to do so afterwards. And feel free to share it with as many people as you think it will benefit. So something that is new in the world of our people community, we have recently, it was yesterday actually, we just released our October edition of our People magazine. And thank you, because we have had so many contributions from people within this people community that have made the magazine what it is. And if you would like to add an article in a future magazine, the next one is in December. So we have a deadline, the 17th of November. If you would like to, I will pop all the details in the chat and drop me a message, pitch me your idea, and let's get your contribution into the magazine for the Christmas edition. So that's it from me just for the moment. I'm going to hand over to Leanne and we're going to get started on our session for kindness.
Thank you so much, Tom. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Joe, I saw your comment in the chat box, so I hope you have your leg up and resting and being well looked after. Kindness is something that we feel really passionate about at Beam. Certainly from our work as therapists, it's something that we know when people experience it, they tend to have stronger mental health, they tend to feel more included, they tend to actually increase in their self-confidence and self-belief. When people don't experience it, we tend to see the reverse. And a very long time ago, actually, Tom and I were affected by someone taking their life, and we started to sign off our emails. If you've ever had an email off Tom or myself, we don't sign best regards or anything like that. We sign our emails off saying be kind. And that was really intentional, of just trying to get us all to kind of recognize that we need to do the action of being kind rather than just thinking about it. We need to actually do it. We need to embody it. We need to be it. So hopefully today's session is going to encourage all of you, who I'm sure are already very kind anyway, to really embrace more kindness in the workplace particularly. So for those of you who've not met us before, Tom and I have a company called Beam Development and Training and a company called Beam Therapy. So we are therapists in lots and lots of different disciplines and psychologists and coaches. And we essentially help people, whether that's on a one-to-one basis or going into organizations and working with everyone from brand new starters to people on the exec team to start to really build self-reliance, to increase their confidence, to overcome some of the kind of well-being challenges that we can all face in the workplace. And one of the things that we're passionate about at Beam is really supporting the people who are helping other people, i.e. yourselves. So we are in a virtual room right now filled with people who care deeply about other people, probably spend a lot of time supporting them in your work, probably spend a lot of time advocating for them, encouraging them to do things to take care of themselves. And if we're honest, probably don't always do the same thing for yourself. And Tom and I have seen that. It's called the wellbeing paradox. We've seen it for years. And essentially, that's why we set up People. So we deliver a free lunch and learn once a month. And as Tom was saying, it's growing. So we've got the magazine, and Tom will be telling you about something really exciting coming next month as well. So what are we going to cover in our time together? So actually quite a lot this afternoon. So it's a lot to get through in a short space of time. So we're going to look at what kindness really means at work. So I'm going to hopefully shatter the illusion that kindness is just niceness. And I'm going to talk about the intentional actions that we can take to be kind to actually benefit our well-being. We'll look at a lot of the statistics of that. We'll look at research that has proven that kindness is good for our mental health, it's good for our physical health. And then hopefully you'll look at why that is so important for bringing that into the workplace. So we'll look at why kind workplaces succeed. We'll look at things like the pro-social behaviors that it encourages, the culture that it can create within a workplace, and actually encourage you to take on policies that have kindness embedded in it. And we'll be touching on something which we call the ripple effect of kindness. Interestingly, our free lunch and learn next month is actually called the ripple effect. So we're only dabbling here, but I can't really talk about kindness without talking about how it can start to have a cascade through everywhere in your life. Then we'll talk about practicing kindness as people. So your role really as a people person in that people-centric role of really practicing it, embodying it, and demonstrating it to other people. So what do we mean when we talk about kindness? So most of us know the expression, be kind. Most of us will go through our life trying to be kind to other people. Not many people actually go through life deliberately trying to hurt each other. Many of us would like to think of ourselves as a kind person. But actually, that often gets mistaken for niceness. And niceness feels quite wishy-washy. It feels not that deliberate and it feels quite vague. But actually, kindness isn't niceness. Kindness has actually been studied really extensively within the umbrella of positive psychology. And it's been shown to have so many benefits to both the recipient and the giver. And we're going to cover some of them through the session today. So for those of you who've not come across positive psychology before, it's essentially a movement in psychology that started in the 90s by someone called Martin Seligman. And he was a very successful psychologist, but noticed that traditional psychology tended to look at what went wrong with people. So he was looking at people that either weren't hitting that normal line of what would be considered normal or average, and it looked at what people needed to do to become normal and average. And Seligman had this realization that actually, if we're only ever measuring either the average or the below average, it causes two problems. One, if we're only doing that, we're only ever encouraging people to come up to average. to never exceed? And two, how does it explain these outliers that are actually succeeding really well in life? And so Seligman started to create this movement. He's called the godfather of positive psychology. And he created this movement that started to look at what people were doing right in psychology. So studying what behaviors human beings were showing that was helping them to thrive. And kindness is a really interesting one, because what Seligman found was that when people actively, consciously did a kindness, it was one of the greatest predictors of them having good well-being. In fact, unlike emotions such as happiness, which also comes under positive psychology, or gratitude, also under positive psychology, what Seligman found was that kindness is mostly a doing, whereas some of the others are more internal. It was mostly external. And so what Seligman started to look at was how we could deliberately perform kind acts, not only to be more pro-social and to have better connections with other human beings, but to also benefit ourselves, to give us this sense of feeling like we are flourishing in our own lives. And so this brief session that we've got today is really going to hopefully sell to you that kindness is something all of us should be really passionately doing every single day of our lives, because it benefits so many people. So let's look at some of the research that shows what kindness can do when we start to do it every single day. So kindness makes us feel good. You know this. You've noticed that when you do a kind act to someone, you get this lovely, warm, fuzzy feeling inside. And that's not a coincidence. When we're kind, we produce a neurochemical called serotonin. And serotonin is our feel-good hormone. It helps us to not only experience a positive sense of well-being, but this kind of sense of contentment that, oh, I'm a good person, I'm doing all right. I don't know if you've ever noticed when you do something kind for someone, it makes you feel better too. And it doesn't happen randomly. It actually is part of our neuroscience. Our brains are literally wired to be pro-social. If you go back to more primitive times, it was in all of our interests that we were pro-social within our tribes in order to make our tribes thrive and survive. And so there's something that is nicknamed the helper's high. When we perform a kindness, we actually get this kind of rush of endorphins, just like some of us can get with exercise. And it's, instead of a runner's high, it's known as a helper's high. So doing something that's kind actually makes us feel good internally. There was a study in 2008, which was really interesting, which found that volunteering just once a week was as significantly impactful on our well-being as having your salary raised, get ready for this, from $20,000 a year to $75,000 a year. I know, astounding. But that research says that when we volunteer, when we get that helper's high, it actually means that we value it as much as we do a financial reward. Other ways that kindness can help us, well, it is again being proven to reduce stress and anxiety. There are a lot of studies actually on the relationship between kindness, stress, and anxiety, which show that once someone practices kindness, their anxiety levels start to reduce. And I know certainly in the therapy room, over all the years of me being a therapist, so often when someone is really in the grips of anxiety, it often means that they've lost the ability to focus on other people. They become very internalized. And so sometimes a little bit of the homework that I'll give is to just perform one tiny kind act. It can literally be letting a car in front of you. It can be opening a door for someone, something really small. But when we start to do that, we actually start to view the world from the inside out rather than the outside in. There was a study by Dignity Health a few years ago that found that 82% of travelers found traveling stressful. I don't know about you, but you get into the airport, you're worried that how many times do you check your passport? You're worried that somehow something totally illegal has been put in your suitcase and you didn't even notice. And they then did this study and they got travelers, instead of focusing on all of those things, to go into traveling with the intention of helping one person. So whether that was helping an old lady with a case or someone struggling with the check-in, whatever it was. And what they found in that study was that more than half of the travelers surveyed found that when they helped someone else, they felt happier and their anxiety decreased. It's just this ability for us to focus on someone else rather than focus on ourselves. So we know that when we deliberately perform kindness, we actually reduce our stress and anxiety. There are a lot of studies on that. Kindness is good for our heart. If we know someone is kind, we will often say that they're kind-hearted or they've got a big heart. And I don't know, I think sometimes when we use these terms, they've come from somewhere originally. And this is actually a study that the late Dr. David Hamilton used to talk about. And David Hamilton used to talk about how when we perform a kind act, we also release, as well as serotonin, something called oxytocin. And oxytocin is this wonderful neurochemical that helps us feel good. So you will get a rush of oxytocin when you hug someone you love, or when you see a newborn puppy, kitten, baby, whatever it is that makes you go, that is oxytocin flowing through your system. Now, we know that oxytocin is there to help us bond with another being. That's why we get this feeling when we hug a loved one. But it also releases a lot of different chemicals within the blood system, one of which is nitric oxide, not to be confused with nitrous oxide, very different, which helps dilate our blood vessels. So it reduces our blood pressure slightly, and it helps us to get a better flow of blood through our system and is known as being a cardioprotective chemical. So literally, being kind, when we produce oxytocin as a result, it helps protect our heart. So maybe it's not just that emotional, big-hearted feeling. Maybe actually we can also have a sense of it helping us physically in our heart too. Kindness keeps us healthier. So there was a really interesting and quite surprising research study by someone called Dr. Christine Carter. And she looked at people over 55 and found that when they volunteered, particularly more than twice a week, they had, again, another staggering statistic, a 44% lower likelihood of dying early. That is a huge contributing factor because it's actually higher there and stronger than the effect of exercising 4 times a week, which we know prevents illness and helps us live longer. And also actually going to church, we know helps prevent illness and makes us live longer. But volunteering actually had a more significant effect than both of those. And one of the reasons for that is because when we perform a kind act, we have those wonderful neurochemicals flowing through us. And one of the things that it does is it reduces inflammation in the body. And pretty much every health problem that's ever going to impact us is a result of inflammation somewhere. So whether that's diabetes, whether it's cancer, whether it's chronic pain, whether it's heart issues. So because it lowers our inflammatory response, we therefore live longer and healthier. So even just a tiny little bit of kindness will help reduce inflammation. And then the last one I want to share with you is a 2010 study by Harvard, which is one of the largest studies that there is. It's a study of happiness based on, the last time I looked through it, was 136 countries. And what they were looking at was essentially happiness in all sorts of different countries. They literally looked at billionaires, they looked at people who were homeless, they looked at people who were high-level athletes, they looked at people who had a terminal illness. And what they were doing was they were studying what it was that made people happy. And what they found was that people who gave to others were the happiest people overall. Incredible. Christine Carter again said that if you give of yourself to help others, you literally protect your heart health. So we know that if we are kind, it has all sorts of brilliant benefits. So that's great in our general life. And hopefully we take this into our general life and we try and be kinder with other people. There's a few little tips I've got for that. Some of us find it really challenging because if we look out into the world at the moment, it can absolutely seem that the world isn't particularly kind, that the world is cruel and scary and frightening. And what that can do if we focus on all of that is it can make us shut off even more and then actually become part of that problem. What I definitely try and do, and it is a practice, I'm not always good at it, particularly if I'm driving, is I try and assume that I don't know what's going on in the other person's life. So if someone is rude to me, if someone's impatient with me, if someone is short-tempered with me, then I try as best as I can to think, I don't know what's going on in their life. And I learned this brilliant phrase, actually comes from an amazing ex-military man called Jocko Willink. And he's this massive martial arts guy. He's I think it was Navy SEAL. You definitely wouldn't mess with him. And he was asked in an interview, what does he do if someone gets road rage at him? And he said, nothing. And the interviewer said, yeah, surely, you're human. You must get rattled if someone's, giving you finger signals and swearing at you. And he said, no, because if someone has been provoked to get that angry over something like that, I know that their life is worse than mine in that moment. And I am not going to make it any worse than it needs to be. And that just really stuck with me as a really strong stance on an act of kindness, to just kind of take the assumption that I don't know what's going on in someone's life. And if they are being outwardly rude to me, if they're being outwardly aggressive on the road, then the chances are they're having a worse day than me. And it's better for me to just back off and leave it. So it's a nice little tip on trying to be a little bit kinder, even when the world doesn't always seem like it is. We know that if we bring kindness into the workplace, then we know, sorry. Okay, I'll come back to that, Sabrina. So Tom or myself will come back to that in a moment. So we know then if we bring kindness into the workplace, then actually what we're going to do is to start to create a nicer culture for us to work in. Now, I know there are a lot of HR people on this call. Inevitably, when we set up people, it's probably about 80% of those people are within HR, L&D in some way. And you're probably a little bit frustrated because there's often this kind of assumption that culture is HR's responsibility. And that just is not true. Absolutely, HR can suggest policies and talk about initiatives that you can have in place for a good culture. But actually, culture in a workplace is the responsibility of every single person there. And so one of the reasons that kind workplaces are more successful is because it starts to create a more pro-social leadership. So everyone starts to take their responsibility. If we have leadership that is based in kindness, then the employees are going to benefit, the customers and clients are going to benefit, actually the bottom line and profit are going to benefit. So we start to create this leadership network that feels like a positive culture, filtering out throughout that entire organization, rather than hoping that one department or maybe the exec team filter that down. That just doesn't work. It also creates more citizenship style behaviors, something that we see a lot more of actually in Europe than we do as much in the UK. But it encourages employees to go beyond their role, to see that they're part of a much bigger ecosystem. I know that there are organizations on this call that actually do a lot of local voluntary and charity work where they get their colleagues to go and plant some trees or help out in a local organization. That really helps because it's giving people a sense of purpose, it's giving people passion, it's getting people engaged. And actually, within the workplace, we then see those behaviors start to filter through. If we create kind policies, things such as peer recognition, rewards, those kinds of charity activities and incentives, what we see is a longer term business benefit. So the culture improves, there's more trust, and we start to see better results. It promotes well-being. Well, we've already given you lots and lots of reasons why that's so important. If we are encouraging people to take care of their well-being and yet the workplace is not seen as kind, then we are never going to get that sense of well-being. People are going to feel that they can't take time off, they can't ask for help. It's going to really impact that psychological safety. And actually, what I 100% know, as I have several stories I could share with you, is that a kind workplace will literally save lives. And I want to share a really powerful story here, because I think it really demonstrates that we do not ever know what's going on in someone's life. So a few years ago, I was asked to go into an organization to deliver some training programs. And I delivered a training program, and actually this one training program was a long training program. And there was one person on that training program who was actually quite prickly and a little bit difficult. And I just had this sense that they were being that way because they were having a tough time. And I could see that some of the group perhaps rolled their eyes or didn't want to engage as much. And so I decided to almost, that terrible term in a way is kind of kill that person with kindness. I decided to be extra kind to this person because I just felt like they needed it. At the end of the training program, after several months of working together, we then had a one-to-one session. And this person told me something that has forever changed my life and how I see these interactions. They told me that the morning that they had got up, on that day, they went to the shop and they bought a lot of tablets. They came into work fully intending to do their full day of work, and then would go home and take all of those tablets. Thank God, when they were at work, they received an email saying they had been shortlisted to go onto this training program, which was really quite, there was a lot of excitement about it because it was brand new for this organization. And thankfully, this person decided that they wouldn't take those pills. They would actually see this as an opportunity and attend that training. And maybe it was a sign, maybe it was a gift, maybe it was an opportunity for them to see some light in a very dark tunnel. And so that person who'd attended the training program, who was prickly and difficult, and other people perhaps rolled their eyes or didn't want to be paired up with them, was actually going through all of this, showing up for work every single day. They didn't miss a single day of work. And they had that intention to end their life. Thank goodness, several years later, that person is still here. That person is contributing massively within the organization. That person has purpose. That person has seen that there is some light in their life, and their family get to have that person in their life and be able to be part of that person's life. To me, that's one of the most powerful stories I can share with you about the power of kindness. We never know what people are carrying. We never know what someone is showing up to work with every single day, doing their job, absolutely being present. We never know what that prickly person, that person who's difficult to get to, we never know why they're like that or what they're going through. And so literally taking a stance of, I'm just going to be really kind to this person and see where it goes, literally in that situation, save their life. It's one of the most proud things that I think I've ever done. As a therapist, you get a privileged position of being able to do that frequently, that this person really got to me, as you can probably tell. And I'm so incredibly proud that they are still here. And it was all because of kindness. Oh, okay. So let's have a little look at some kind workplaces, some places that have really embedded kindness. I think one of my favorites is actually the Timpson Group here in the UK. Now, many of you might have heard of why the Timpson Group is amazing. They are very known for their upside down management philosophy. Employees are fully trusted to make decisions. They're treated like family. They own lots of properties throughout the UK, and a Timpson's employee can take their family to go and stay at some of those properties as a holiday or for respite. They offer free dry cleaning if someone is unemployed. They employ a lot of ex-offenders. They give staff days off for life events. They don't ask for proof and paperwork. They trust their employee. There's a brilliant book, Tom. Could you just tell me what the name of the book is about Timpsons? Because I know you've just read it.
It's called The Happy Index. They
Brilliant.
also, everybody gets their birthday off, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah, that's nice, isn't it? Thank you, Tom. So, yeah, the whole philosophy of Timpson's kindness policies is in a new book called The Happy Index. I haven't read it yet, but I know Tom loved it because he read it within like less than a week. So, if you are thinking of really bringing this more into the workplace, definitely a great case study to start looking at. Timpson's is ranked as one of the UK's happiest workplaces. They have immense staff loyalty. Their customer satisfaction is good. Their turnover is really low. So it is absolutely the company I would probably put up there as a benchmark, as a kind organisation. There are others, though. We've got Patagonia. So Patagonia are an American-based company. Thank you, Tom. And they've got kindness really rooted in more environmental and social responsibility. They take care of their employees really well. So they've got flexible hours. They have on-site childcare. They are paid to take time off to volunteer. So they really encourage that. And the ethos of Patagonia is that they all play a part in protecting the planet. They've got amazing retention rates, and they're known as one of the most purpose-driven cultures in the whole world. Then two that kind of surprised me a little bit, because these are two massive global organizations. So Starbucks. So Starbucks actually encourages staff to embed kindness into their everyday rituals. They give staff things like free therapy sessions, emergency first aid, financial first aid, tuition support. But what I really loved about the Starbucks philosophy is when baristas are training, they are apparently encouraged to listen, connect, and show empathy to customers and teammates. So that one surprised me a little bit because my assumptions, I guess, of Starbucks would be such a huge kind of machine that people wouldn't be treated like that. But actually, they've got really good employee engagement. And then another one is Microsoft. So Microsoft actually used to have a really strong culture of competition. And interestingly, they recruited Satya Nadella, and she changed the whole ethos to move from competition to compassion, collaboration, and curiosity. And managers there are trained in growth mindset. They're trained in empathetic communication. They're encouraged to learn from mistakes. Mistakes aren't something to be feared. And they're encouraged to support each other. The psychological safety within Microsoft is really quite high. So it actually changed their reputation massively. They were seen much more as a caring organization. And so what can you do? Well, whatever role you are in within your organization, you have the opportunity to create a ripple effect. What we absolutely know with kindness through Seligman's research, through case studies, is that one act of kindness always ripples. So there's this lovely quote, which is what you model multiplies. If we can create a culture of kindness within our organizations, we build psychological safety, which encourages creativity, innovation, collaboration. We know that it will spread throughout every single person within that organization. And as I said, our next Lunch and Learn is all about kindness. So you will be able to find out more about the ripple effect on our next session. So how can you practice kindness as a people person? In every single role that you're in, if you work within HR, recruitment, the stories that we hear at the moment are really not kind. We hear stories of people never hearing back. We hear stories of people going for an interview and not getting the feedback that they really have asked for. Give kind, clear feedback. Know that that interaction has really mattered for that person. We fully understand that it's a huge workload, but every single one of those people is a human being that will interpret silence in a different way. In ER cases, we can absolutely encourage compassion alongside policy. We did a lunch and learn session of probably about 6, 7 months ago called empathetic leadership, which really would encompass all of that. Being able to be a kind leader isn't being a walkover, isn't being soft. It's not just agreeing with everything. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is give someone the feedback that they're not performing well. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is to say, actually, this role isn't for you. It's not working for both of us. So sometimes the kind thing is the tricky thing, the difficult thing. In leadership, anyone in leadership, if you took the stance of deciding to really embody kind leadership, you would see such a difference within your team. As I say, it's really one of the cornerstones of psychological safety, a topic we're delivering on next year. We deliver a lot of workshops on that. It's without that kind leadership, psychological safety is really, really hard to create. Within your daily HR, so little gestures, acknowledgements, check-ins. You know someone's having a tough time. I know there's a HR manager on this call who's amazing at that. And I won't give anything away, but that person is so good at being able to spot when someone in their workforce is struggling and doing just a little check-in. Doesn't have to be something major, doesn't have to be a big deal, just a little small check-in and showing gratitude. And that ultimately starts to feed into that culture. So I'm going to ask for a little bit of interaction in the chat box. I'm going to ask you, what is one act of kindness you are going to commit? Let's say today, by the end of today, what is one kind thing you are going to do by the end of today? And if you can pop it in the chat box, that would be lovely. I love that, Jennifer. I'm voting for you. Oh, how lovely would that be? Ah, I very much like Tom's answer. check in with my boss. Absolutely. These little check-ins, it means so much. Like Jo said, she's broken her leg, and just those people who are just kind of checking in, undoubtedly probably Jo saying, do you need any shopping or things like that? Can I help with your washing? Whatever it is. What else are you going to do? I'm not letting you get away with it. I want more answers in the chat box than this. Check on a colleague who hasn't been well. Lovely Mary. Treat my direct report to a coffee next time we're in the office together. They just mean so much, these tiny little acts of kindness. They just don't have to be huge. So here's some suggestions of micro practices of kindness. Kindness really shouldn't be seen as a perk. Kindness should be seen as a cultural practice of being a decent human being, right? And I always say, and I again say this so much in the therapy room, you cannot give what you haven't got. If you're not being kind to yourself, then it's really hard to keep being kind to everyone else. So the first act of kindness that I would love all of you to do is something kind for yourself, whether that's you take your full lunch break, whether it's you ring your best friend, whether it's you go and look at videos of puppies or kittens, whatever it is. Something that is really good for you is where it begins. Then you can start to ripple that out to colleagues, to just be able to give something because you filled yourself up a little bit. And then, as I gave with my demonstrations, being kind to someone you find challenging, it's not always easy. We're humans after all, right? But sometimes you can completely see a different side of that person when you show them a bit of kindness. Sometimes when you give kindness to a challenging person, you might even save their life. So we've covered a lot. As with all of these sessions, you know, it's a lot of information, right, in a very short space of time. But ultimately, kindness isn't about being nice. Sometimes saying the hard thing is the kindest thing we can do. Kindness at the core can change workplace culture. If we start to model it, we will start to see it ripple throughout. Difficult conversations can and should be kind. Even if you're telling someone that the role isn't for them, that can still be a kind thing to do. And we create what we model. I know that some comments and questions came up. I will hand over to Tom so we can wrap up in perfect time, but I will come back to questions if anyone has them before the end. Tom, if I can hand over to you.
Yes. Hello. That was a great session.
Oh,
And
Tom, you're not on microphone or camera. There you are.
There was just a little bit of a delay. Can you hear me now? Yep. Wonderful. So, yeah, there were some wonderful acts of kindness there as well. So here, before we answer any questions, we'll come to that right at the end of the session. But here's just a quick update of some of the things that are coming up. So we will send out the recording and resources via email afterwards. You'll also be able to access it all through our resources library, where we have replays of the last year of these lunch and learns. We'll also email you details on how you can schedule a call if you would like to talk to either myself or Leanne further. And you can join our LinkedIn group as well, which is all focused on people. In the comment or in the chat, I have added links to the next people lunch and learns that we have. So the next one that we have coming up is on the 22nd of October. It is investigating reports of sexual harassment in the workplace with a specialist called Mick Comfrey from Intersol Global. He's an ex-police detective. Really interesting stories. This is going to be a very, very interesting session on quite an interesting topic in the workplace as well. Then on the 11th of November, we have the ripple effect, which Leanne mentioned earlier. That is another one of our lunch and learns. And the links to register for those are in the chat as well. We also are very excited because we have our in-person sessions that are starting in Cardiff next month. And that is a part of our People Power series and our partnership with the Wales HR Network, which we're really excited about. So on the 20th of November, in person, so this is at Hodge House in Cardiff, the session will be hosted by Oggy. We have a panel session including voices from Acorn by Synergy, so Michael Eves, the HR advisor, and then we've got Michaela Postnet, who's the sales director at Acorn. We've also got Tara Edwards, who is from confused.com as well, and Lisa Hand, who is the senior director of people experience at Oggy. So this session, there will be a mix of networking. I think there'll be some croissants as well, which will be very, very nice. But it's a chance for us all to meet in person, which we are really excited about because they've all been digital online sessions up until now. So the link for that is, so you're able to get tickets for that. That is in the chat as well, but we will email all of this to you as well. So right now, I'm going to stop the recording and then we will hang around to answer some of the questions. So bear with me just one moment.
Perfect. Thank you, Tom. I'll